Okay, Chevra, great to see you all. Thank you so much for joining. Mamash, a privilege to continue to learn together. B'siyata d'shmaya. I apologize about last week. We did a trip to Manchester that was really very special. Baruch Hashem, very, very special. Beginning to kindle a little bit of a spark to add on to the mighty fire that, of course, is already burning there. But we could all use extra chizik, and we just came back way too late and way too tired to carry on with the Shabbos year. But I very much wanted this week to continue. It's a hard time of year. Everybody's busy and the schedules aren't set up properly. The timing is not so good for people in America. It's like 4:15 in the afternoon. We're trying to play with that as well. So Be'ez Hashem, it's going to take some time, a couple of weeks, for sure until after Sukkot, until things really get settled. We have to continue with the Sichas around Shirim as well. We haven't forgotten about those, but everything la'at la'at, but we're trying. So let's jump in. We have a lot to do tonight. And as always, I very deeply appreciate you taking the time to learn with me. It means the world to me, so thank you. And we are going to share the screen. And we will jump into it. B'siyata d'shmaya. Okay. Let us talk about Shabbos. And not just one of the details of Shabbos, which, like we said last week, we're going to get into. Be'ez Hashem, I want to really just first do a makif, like a much broader overview of some of the basic foundational fundamentals of Shabbos, and then go into Friday night, Shabbos morning, Shabbos afternoon, with the meals and the tefillas and the avodas and minhagim and so on. But I just want to first talk about just Shabbos. And so let's take a look at this incredible teaching from the Degel Machaneh Ephraim, from the Heiliger Degel Machaneh Ephraim, the grandson of the Baal Shem HaKadosh and the uncle of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. And the tzaddik says like this: V'shamru b'nei Yisrael es HaShabbos. The pasuk tells us in Kisisa that Am Yisrael shall guard the Shabbos, la'asois es HaShabbos. To do Shabbos, to keep Shabbos, l'doirei sam, for all generations, beris olam, it is an eternal bond, beini uvei bnei Yisrael, ois hi la'olam, like we learned, it's an eternal sign, and we learned in 2 weeks ago when we had our first year that Shabbos reveals that unbreakable, essential, eternal bond that we share with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so, this is what the pasuk tells us. Shabbos is ois hi la'olam. Now, before we even get into the piece from the Degel, I just want to present the most basic conception of what Shabbos could possibly be. Let's start that way, because our whole point of this shiurim is to try to get into the depth of it. Let's just start with what conceivably a person could think about Shabbos. Well, let's think about it just on a most basic level. 6 days of the week, Shabbos is the day of rest, as opposed to the 6 days of doing, where we're allowed to go ahead and to do the Lamites Malachos, which we'll learn from the Mei HaShiloach about Be'ez Hashem in the next piece. And Shabbos seems to be wedged between two periods of doing. One 6-day period, full of the ability to do things, to produce and to accomplish, and then there's Shabbos, it's a day of rest, and then the week that follows, on a basic conception, especially in light of this, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu rested on Shabbos, and therefore, like we learned, HaKadosh Baruch Hu made the world in 6 days, rested on Shabbos. What would one rest on a 25-hour period in between two periods of doing? What would be the function of that? What's the utility? On the most basic level is to gather strength for the next week. And so on a most basic conception, we have 6 days of the week, and that's the Iker. Then we have Shabbos, and Shabbos is basically hunkering down, regaining our strength to then go back into the week and to continue with all of our projects, right? That's on a most basic level. If we wanted to explain to a person just off the street who is really not ready for anything, deeper than just that, on a purely pragmatic, I would even say secular level, because it doesn't have to be a religious thing. It's a good practice, right? You take 1 day off. Happens to be that the nations of the world, Christianity in particular, but it became a part of American culture, British culture. Sunday is the day off. Be that as it may, it's part of the collective consciousness. It's a good idea. 1 day of this thing we call a week, we take off and we gain our strength, and we go back into the week. Ultimately, this kind of approach, of course, makes it sound like the week is the Iker, and Shabbos is a purely, pragmatic function of being able to rest so that we have strength for the week, and then we rest again, and then we go back into the week, with the week being the tachlis, the ultimate purpose. We know, of course, that nothing further can be the truth, right? This is the furthest thing from the truth. Shabbos, we learn, is tachlis Maaseh Shemayim va'aretz. Shabbos is the ultimate goal. Shabbos is the purpose. The week is to bring us to Shabbos, but Shabbos is not a pragmatic function of giving us time to pause and to regain our strength for the week. No, Shabbos is the pinnacle of the week. When we come out of the week, we start to climb up towards Shabbos yet again. Hopefully each week, especially in the light of these shiurim with Hashem's help, it gets deeper and deeper, and our awareness and our appreciation and our experience of Shabbos grows deeper and deeper, like we talked about last time. Everything is talui on the mind. Everything is talui. Everything depends on how deeply we're aware of the meaning of Shabbos. And so hopefully that's the way it should go, with Shabbos always being the pinnacle, the top of the mountain. But here the Degel Machaneh Ephraim gives us a very beautiful conception to keep in mind as we march through the week up to Shabbos. What might that look like? How can we conceptualize it? Says the Heilige Tzaddik, Isa b'Balaturim. It's brought in the Balaturim. Es HaShabbos l'dairoisam. These three words, Es HaShabbos l'dairoisam, right? That they would, the Shamar b'nei Yisrael Shabbos, they kept Shabbos, they will keep Shabbos. Lasas as HaShabbos, to make Shabbos l'dairoisam forever. These three words, Es HaShabbos l'dairoisam, Rashi Tevis, Oyhel. These three words carry the Rashi Tevis. The first three letters of these words spells Ohel, Oyhel, which is of course a tent. Now, why would Shabbos and these two other words surrounding Shabbos, Es HaShabbos l'dairoisam, keeping Shabbos for all generations, carry this word Ohel? What's the connection between Shabbos and a tent? Says the Heilige Tzaddik v'nakdim laha'ir. He says, first we need a little bit of an introduction. HaKasav asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'soicham. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, make for me a mikdash, which of course means a mikdash, a Beis HaMikdash. It could also mean, of course, over there the Mishkan. V'shachanti b'soicham, and I shall dwell within it. Well, says the Tzaddik, hine mizeh mashma shebilti mikdash i'efshar la'asheras hashchina b'teichenu. This makes it sound like, what is the prerequisite for the Shekhinah to come down into this world, for God consciousness to become accessible to us, open to us? What's the vessel? It's one thing. Make for me a mikdash. And then, v'shachanti b'soicham. So he says it sounds like mashma shebilti mikdash, that without the Beis HaMikdash, which is unfortunately the circumstance that we've found ourselves in for the past 2,000 years, close to 2,000 years, that sounds like without that vessel, so then we have no access to this kind of experience of HaKadosh Baruch Hu really resting on us, in our mind, in our body, in our homes, in our lives. How could this be? Acha inyan hu. But he says the matter is as follows: Al derech ne'ein olam haba yom Shabbos menucha. That we say that Shabbos is a little bit of a taste of olam haba. Lakach yesh loymar, if this is true, that Shabbos is a little bit of an experience of the Yom, like we refer to it, Yom Shekulei Shabbos, which is of course, what's Olam Haba? Like the Ramchal tells us at the beginning of Mesilas Yesharim, sitting and basking in the presence of Hashem. Well, if Shabbos is a little bit of a taste of that, Lachein yesh loymar eitza hayu'utza. So therefore, Chazal are telling us there's a piece of advice, even if a person does not have the experience of the Beis HaMikdash, what should he do? He says there's a piece of advice. Lishmar Shabbos kihulchasai. Keep Shabbos. Guard Shabbos. Val yedei zeh yuchlu lizkos lahashra'as hashchina kiviyachol. Even without the Beis HaMikdash, Shabbos itself is a window into that realm where there's nothing else other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem Himself. Shabbos is that experience. So he says, therefore, Must be that Shabbos ki hi ke'ein mikdash. Shabbos is like a palace. Shabbos is like the Beis HaMikdash. Gam kemein olam haba, that the Beis HaMikdash was also a taste of olam haba. You walked into the Beis HaMikdash, it was clear there were nisim. You experienced the presence of Hashem. Miracles, open miracles. The godliness of the singing, it was divine. Shabbos is a little bit of that as well. Therefore, this pasuk is hinting to us, Es HaShabbos l'dayroisam, when we speak about Shabbos being kept for generations, so then Rosh Hashanah Oyhel. Then the Torah hints to us, that's also a little bit of a tent. That's also a little bit of a remez that he says, Shu gamkin b'chinas Oyhel u'mishkan. Shabbos is itself, not just a day that we experience like any other day. We need to see ourselves as entering a structure on Shabbos. A structure with completely different atmosphere. A person walks in from the street and he walks into some kind of experiential, museum where there's different lighting and maybe even a different atmosphere. Like sometimes a person can walk into like in a planet, like a thing with plants. I'm forgetting what it's called right now, but a place that has lots of plants growing. You walk into a certain particular room where they keep things at different temperatures so that they can grow different kinds of exotic plants. All you did was enter a room, but it's a completely different experience. Completely different experience. Shabbos is in time what the Beis HaMikdash is in place. And so this provides us with a very healthy, beautiful, useful image to place on top of the mountain that we described earlier, that we are journeying throughout the week, step by step, up and up and up and up to what? To Mamish Beis HaMikdash. And we need to feel when Shabbos comes in, when we finally take the phone and put it on the side and plug it in, and we leave it, we lock it, and we turn it off, or whatever we do with it, but we shut all of our devices and we change our clothing and we get ready to walk to shul, and we're walking with our children, or we say, Good Shabbos, and we'll see when we come back. We need to feel that when we walk out of our house to begin to walk to shul, we are literally entering in the palace of the king. We're walking into not just, it's a different kind of day. It's a different mitzias. It's a different reality. Mamish, imagine like we would walk into the Beis HaMikdash. Now, it's just one small step for man, right? Like, it's just one small step. But just envision in your head for a minute. You couldn't compare if you had a dictionary and a thesaurus in front of you to look up all the words that you might be able to imagine expressing the distinction between outside the Beis HaMikdash and inside the Beis HaMikdash. Ein odoime. Ein odoime. And this is what we should be feeling when we start to enter into Shabbos. Mamish, it's a different world. Shabbos is an oyhel. It's a tent. It should be for us like a physical place. It's more abstract. It's more ethereal. It's harder to define it because you don't feel that way. But everything depends on our consciousness, our conception. So this is very powerful. Es HaShabbos l'dayroisam Rosh Hashanah oyhel. Hainu shu gam kein b'chinas oyhel u'mishkan v'hu sha'amar l'dayroisam is itself lashon dira. See, he says, of course it means further generations, but he says the word dayroisam carries the shirish dalid reish, which implies a dwelling place. Shabbos is a palace. Shabbos is a shining, beautiful golden castle on top of this mountain that we climb throughout the week, step after step. And then we enter into it, and it becomes a dira. It becomes an oyhel. Hainushu gamkin b'chinas oyhel, like he says, b'chinas diras hamikdash. Allowing Shabbos to come and dwell within us just as we dwell within it. And allowing us to perceive HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence in the world. Bris oilam. Hainu, be'emtsos HaShabbos yidor b'neihem ha'adayin Baruch Hu. Shabbos enables us to have this bond with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shu bris shala oilam. Shu HaMashpia HaAmiti, we refer to a bris, excuse me, as a channel that's bringing Shefa down into the world. Shabbos is that. It's the grand storage house. Matana Toiva Yeshli Bebeis Genozai. Shabbos comes from the place of the treasures. And we walk into Shabbos, it's a bris. It's the Bechina of Mashpia. It's the Bechina of drawing buckets full of incredible life-giving elixir of life, of living waters that we're drawing up out of Shabbos. L'klalus ha'olam, to the whole world. V'hu she'mesayim acher kach ois hi la'olam. So he says an amazing thing. Also Rosh Hashanah Oyhel. This I'm not sure the Baal Turim says. I think the Baal Turim just says Es HaShabbos L'Dairoisam. But he says further on in the pasuk, a couple of words later, Ois hi la'olam gam kin Rosh Hashanah Oyhel. Hainu zeh ha'ois hi la'olam. B'li hefsek afilu bizman she'ein beis hamikdash mikol makim Shabbos loy betela v'hu mikdash v'havin. Because even though we may lose the physical building of the Beis HaMikdash, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us, Ois hi la'olam, Rosh Hashanah Oyhel, we have access to this palace, but it's a palace in time, and it's forever. And no amount of destruction and no amount of mistakes on our part can do away with Shabbos. That's not one of the things that we risk by behaving badly as an individual or as a nation. Shabbos is forever. Not just that, not only can our behavior not cause Shabbos to be taken away, but Shabbos actually can fix all of the behaviors. Like we learned last week, even a person that has been transgressing Avodah Zarah like the Dor of Enosh, Shabbos, Kol Shomer Shabbos, Mechal Eloi, Chazal say, Mochal Eloi. Shabbos envelops us in a place of eternality, of bris olam. Let's take a look at the Mei HaShiloach. It says Degel Machaneh Ephraim. It should say Mei HaShiloach here. And the tzaddik says as follows. I believe this is in Parshas Vayelech, in the first Chelek, I believe. What is it? What is the energy of Shabbos? What is it that we're walking toward? What is it that we experience on Shabbos? What's the message? And what are we supposed to then take into the week, the following week, as well as looking back over our journey? What's the message here? Says the Heilige Mei HaShiloach, Mikeit Sheva Shanim b'moed shnas hashmita b'chag HaSukkos. At the end of 7 years, meaning when Shemitah is completed, b'chag HaSukkos, on the following Sukkos. That's what the pasuk tells us. So Isa b'Gemara, the Gemara says, what's the connection? Shnas hashmita ma'avidite. Why do we have to tell you at the end of Shemitah? Why are we mentioning Shemitah? Just say the 8th year. It has nothing to do with Shemitah anymore. Shemitah is over. Much like what we're experiencing now. We just finished the Shemitah cycle. Says the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, Shemitah ma'avidite. B'chag HaSukkos shminesu. It's already the 8th year. So what are we making reference here to the previous year, which was Shemitah? Says the Gemara, Ela kol tvuah it should say shehivia, it's a mistake. Kol tvuah shehivi shlish b'shvius, any crop that grew a third within Shemitah, even though right now Shemitah is over and it moves into the 8th year, says the Gemara, and it's brought this way la'alacha, atanoyeg ba minik shvius b'shminas. Even though it's not Shemitah anymore, that grain continues to have kedusha shvius. You have to make it hefker to the public. All the halachas of shvius apply to that grain, except for what you're allowed to do for it, because you're still allowed to water it and prune it because it's not Shemitah anymore. But that grain in and of itself has kedusha shvius, even though it's not Shemitah and it's not been cut and it's not left over from shvius. It's still growing. Says the Gemara, we learn from this pasuk in the juxtaposition between Shnas HaShemitah and the following Chag HaSukkos, that there is a way in which the Kedusha of Shemitah, of Shvius, carries over into the 8th year. It's a phenomenal thing. Shemitah is over. This grain carries that holiness on past Shemitah. Says the Mei HaShiloach, V'hu al pi pasuk, and this is in accordance with the pasuk, Hashemayim shemayim l'Hashem, v'ha'aretz nasan livnei adam. We say this in Hallel. Shemayim is for Hashem. It means that not like the physical heaven. The spiritual realm, that's the realm where HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence is revealed. But then, as we're going to see from the Maggid of Mezeritch in a minute, HaKadosh Baruch Hu withheld that revelation, and He gave us the earth. Va'aretz nasan livnei Adam. He gave us the earth. Says the Mei HaShiloach, v'zehu rak kifi hanireh. But this is only the way that things appear. And things need to appear this way. Because we have Bechira. And we need to be under this illusion. And it is an illusion that we have choice. But we don't experience it as an illusion. We experience it as being very real. And that's why there's place for Schar and Onesh. And that's why there's place for Yom Kippur and Vidui and all the rest of it. And everything that we're working on now. And wanting to grow because it is in our hand. Hakol b'dei shamayim chutz mi'yireh shamayim. That's our experience. Va'aretz nasam levnei Adam. That's for us. But he says, v'zeu rak kafi hanireh. This is only the way that things appear. Aval David HaMelech alav hashalom in Tehillim, David HaMelech, in a moment of incredible futuristic inspiration, an infusion of the way that things would be for him, meaning for his midah. Because David HaMelech is David Malka Mashiach, and David HaMelech is Malchus. Malchus is one day going to be rectified and seen as Eishes Chayil, which is a Teres Bala. That really the truth is that all of our actions, mamish kol ma'aseinu ata pa'alta. That really HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the show, ein oid milvadoi, even with our bechira, and even with our mistakes, and even with our story, everything's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's unfolding revelation. So David HaMelech, in one moment of him being connected to the ultimate tikkun of himself, meaning of his midah of Malchus, says, Kol asher chafetz Hashem asa, not only bashamayim, but bashamayim uva aretz. That really beyond the surface, Hakol b'dei shamayim, and the Mei HaShiloach actually says these words. If he didn't, we couldn't even dare think of saying them. He says, Afilu yireh shamayim. In the ultimate sense of things, we don't live on that level. And growth is in as much as we turn away from that and live within Bechira. We've spoken about this in the past, but that doesn't make it less true. Ein oid milvadoi. Kol asher chavetz Hashem asa bashamayim, and even uva aretz, that the pasuk says va'aretz nasan l'bnei Adam, that you gave aretz to us. Even that kol asher chavetz Hashem asa, really it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu running the show. Shehaya yodea b'toiv seichel ma'aseh bnei Adam af shenitin bechira b'yad Adam. Even though bechira was given to man, who rak davar muat keklipas hashum. In the ultimate picture, when we take a step back and see things with the big picture, we realize that even that bechira is part and parcel of the will of Hashem. All of it. Us having bechira, the choices we make, ultimately, there's something that's unfolding. And it's a very, very deep awareness, a deep perception. And again, we don't live in that perception. We can't, even if we tried. It's not our natural state. This is the secret of the tzimtzum. We're locked out of being able to live life, where literally we say, Hashem, you're doing everything. We couldn't live this way. Chazal say, Kol ha'omer, whoever says that Hashem is a vatran, which means that Kadosh Baruch Hu, anyway, you're the one who knows what I'm going to do, and I couldn't have chosen something else, so you're mavater because this is what you wanted. It doesn't work this way. Ha'omer echte va'ashuv, a person who says, I'm going to sin, and then I'll do tshuva, and then that will show that really, I was meant to have sin. Chazal say, that doesn't work. You can't school this system. So we have to live within our perception of Bechira, and it's real, and that's where the avodah is, that's where the work is. But there were certain tzaddikim, the Mei HaShiloach, chief among them, Reb Tzadok HaKayin, certain trends within Breslev, and in other places as well, the Sfas Emes in certain places, and others, are talking this language to whisper to us. It's true. But ultimately, we need to realize also that there's a level in which HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs things. Kol asher chafetz Hashem asa b'shamayim, and on the aretz. And that our bechira is rak keklipas hashum. It's an illusion. So here the Mei HaShiloach says, getting back to Shabbos, this is why we say b'yom rishon, as the shir shel yom of Sunday, we say LeDavid Mizmar LaHashem Haaretz Umalaya. Another pasuk from Tehillim. The David HaMelech sings the song of La'asib Lavai LaHashem Haaretz Umalaya. That really everything is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why? Because the Indian Shabbos, what's the whole message of Shabbos? Sheteida, that a person comes to know she'ein shum koyach bi'ada adam l'chol olam etes malachos shenivru ba'olam. A person realizes in withholding and abstaining from all the different categories of things that are processes that we ordinarily use to do things, to make things happen, to control things, to set things up in our life for our own ease, or our own ambitions, or our own success. In setting aside all of those things, the message of Shabbos is the realization that really, it's all a game. Really, it's just pretend. And I'm sitting here, with a plastic steering wheel that's not connected to anything, while meanwhile there's a driver, in the first floor of the bus over here in London. They have double-decker buses. So maybe they have like a thing installed for kids that the kid is sitting there and he thinks he's driving the bus. And the truth is there's a driver underneath with a wheel that actually is with a steering wheel that's connected to the wheels and the motor and the engine, and the kid is doing nothing. That's the Gilui of Shabbos. And so for Shabbos, it's like the kid letting go from the steering wheel, and lo and behold, the bus still goes. And the realization that everything is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's all an illusion. It's all an illusion. Ein oid milvadai. So it's letting go of the Lamates Malacha. It's not because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is like some people think, he's choking us with these restrictions and you can't do it. It's freeing us from the insanity and the delusion that we're the ones that make things happen. It's saying, you can let go of the wheel. I got this. That's what Shabbos is. Amazing thing. See, he says that's the inyan of Shabbos. Sheteida shein shum koyach biyada adam lechol halamet tes malacha shenivru ba'olam shal yadam yuchal adam lifol kol ma sheyirtze kulam ne'asar m'Shabbos. Whatever a person thinks he's going to use to build, to construct, to continue, Shabbos gives you pause for reflection that enables the awareness to flourish that it's not me. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the show. And therefore, when we start to go into the days of the week, and once again we begin to take up the tools that were forbidden one day ago, because we have to live in a world where we where we perceive ourselves as doing something, because that's part of the game here. And it's not a game; it's a very weighty game. It's a game with a lot of gravity. It's not a game for fun. It's important. We have to live in that consciousness. We're meant to work. HaKadosh Baruch Hu set things up in this way. But there's a fear that Yuchal Adam Chas V'Shalom Loimar, with all of that consciousness of it's up to me to work on myself, right? And I can work on myself, and I have bechira, even when I feel that I don't have bechira lera, meaning to say that I'm forced, I'm compelled to behave in certain ways. No, I can do it. These are the healthy perspectives that come along with bechira. I can work on myself. I can fix my midas. I can grow. I can add more learning. I could lengthen my davening, and so on and so forth. But that carries a risk as well. What's the risk? That a person will say, okay, so I have bechira, so then I'm the one that's making things happen in my life. Al Kain, therefore, tiknu Chazal. Chazal said, good, Sunday morning, right after Shabbos, you're going to say a pasuk that decimates that delusional perception. What's the pasuk? Miyad LaHashem Haaretz Umalaya. Everything is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's. It's an extension of Shabbos. Sunday morning, when the Chevra feel like we're back into the daily grind, especially in Eretz Yisrael where there's no such thing as a Sunday. But even for if you live in America, you live anywhere else in the world where Sunday is a quote-unquote day off, it's not a day off, right? It's not Shabbos. It's qualitatively different in every way. So there's a risk. Chazal gave us the opportunity to stop for a minute at the end of our davening, to close our eyes and reconnect with the consciousness of Shabbos. It's a quick, like a cheat sheet almost. It's like you studied for the test. But then a minute before you take the test, you just quickly look over the notes one last time. That's what's going on. La Shem ha'aretz u'malaya. No, it's not me. And even though I'm allowed to do the lamates malachas, and I'm going to be working on things, and I have my plans and ideas, I need to remember, ani lo nahag. I'm not the driver. I'm not. Really, la Hashem ha'aretz u'malaya. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the show here. Says the Mei HaShiloach, v'cheina inyan gam kim b'shmita. So we find the same thing by Shemitah. Shemitah is, for the years, what Shabbos is in the week. Shabbos being the day that we plug into this consciousness. Shemitah being the year that the farmers at least plug into this awareness on a much broader level vis-a-vis the 6 years earlier. And so the 7th year is, in the span of a 7-year cycle, what Shabbos is to the 7-day week. Says the Mei HaShiloach, guess what's going to happen? We're going to start the 8th year. Shemitah will be a thing of the past. And I saw videos already, people are posting, the farmers getting back into the tractors, plowing the fields. Mamish heroes, unbelievable thing. It's wild to think about. A whole year, all their hard work, their effort, their energy, they just let it go. Unbelievable, mamish. It's such a privilege to live in a world with people like that. Unbelievable. But they get back in their tractors, and that creates the possibility of them falling back into a different kind of consciousness. So therefore he says, V'cheina in gam kim b'shmita, she'tziv sa'atayra hainu she'teda, ki la'Hashem ha'aretz u'malaya. Don't forget, even while you're working, don't forget, there's a driver downstairs, or in this case, upstairs, right? And we're just, we're playing with the kid's toy. And therefore, when the 8th year comes, and the Torah says, okay, back to work. Now you're the one that's running the field, and you're the one that's making things happen. Pentishkach chas v'shalom, for fear of us forgetting, and saying, it's me, I'm the one doing it. The Torah tells us, okay, we're still going to allow for the Kedusha of Shvius to carry over even into the 8th year under certain circumstances. We cannot have a situation where Shabbos is over, boom, into the week. It's too risky. It's too risky. We need to be able to carry Shabbos with us in the form of La Hashem ha'aretz u'malaya, which we say Sunday morning, and in the form of this category of grain that continues to carry the Kedusha Shvius into the 8th year, so that we don't forget. Alkein, therefore, again, tzivalias noyeg ba b'shminas gamkein minik shvius betvua shaloi shehivia shlish, again a mistake, shehivia shlish, that did grow a third within Shemitah, shetizka kadesha tizkar, in order to keep this consciousness, Gila Hashem ha'aretz u'malaya. This is the awareness that we attain when we walk into the palace in time called Shabbos on the top of this mountain called the 7-day week. So we're journeying, we're marching, we're walking, and we're trudging in many cases through the mud and the filth and the rain and the darkness and the cold and the fog. Can you tell I haven't moved to London recently, right? And all of this, for what purpose? Because we know that we're getting to a place where for a couple of shining moments, we can drop the delusion and we can plug into what the reality is. The reality beyond the curtain. The reality in time. That's a little bit of a window from the realm of the eternal into our finite experience of seconds and minutes and hours and days. And it's mamish just, we can stop. We can stop. That's the atmosphere that we should experience when we think in our mind and envision us stepping over the threshold of the week into a palace of Shabbos. What is that palace? It's the palace of the realization that even with my bechira and even with everything that I've done during the week and all the mistakes that I've made and all this that I'm not plugged into a higher level consciousness, the truth is, ein oid milvadai. Mamish ein oid milvadai. Excuse me. This is the teaching from the Mei HaShiloach. Let's close out with a teaching from the Maggid of Mezeritch, primary Talmud of the Baal Shem HaKadosh, in his Sefer Ar Torah, collection of teachings, number 390, Shin Tzaddik. So he says an amazing thing. He says an amazing thing. Nigid Shmei Avad Shmei. He says like this. What's a deeper understanding? He says, "Shakadosh Baruch Hu koidim shabaras ha'olam ha'ikiviyachal le'nikeres malchusay." Mamish very deep. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted that his malchus should be perceived, because everybody knows ke'ein melech b'lei am, can't have a king without a nation. And there was an aspect of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, kiviyachal, so to speak, that was lacking, all the while that there wasn't a collective consciousness splintered into individuals who would receive HaKadosh Baruch Hu's kingship upon them. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was king, but that aspect was not revealed until there was a nation. And here he gives another nusach of this, because he says, this is a little bit deeper, everything's relative. And so if you have infinity, infinity is still in and of itself nothing unless it's seen in relativity to finitude, to something that's finite. Then we can talk about infinity. And even then we can't talk about infinity, because people, right, or any conscious being in a finite world cannot grasp the concept of infinity, but we know what it's not, because we've experienced what finite means. And so ultimately the grandness of the higher level can only be revealed vis-a-vis a lower level. That means that even though that higher level might be all-powerful, perfect, in a certain sense, it's not complete until there is something else that it's able to be held against. Because that brings out the true perfection. Like we say, the Rambam, it's called negative theology. There's nothing we could say positively about Hashem. We could just talk about what He's not. Because we live in a world of limit, and we live in a world of lack. And so looking at that, we could say, okay, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has no limit. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has no lack. But it's because we're seeing it through the prism of a splintered nature of reality and perception of reality. He says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinite power, ability, awesomeness, grandeur, all of this that we talk about, the world can't grasp it. Lefikach, therefore, asa tzimtzum achat tzimtzum. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made constriction after constriction, concealment after concealment, so that ultimately we could finally come to a point where we could handle this revelation. And not only that, because it's the only way that we could handle the revelation, we paradoxically consider this revelation to be a concealment of Hashem. And that's only because it's so distant, so to speak, after so many levushim, that we say, wow, this doesn't even look like a godly place at all. But that's the only reason. That's the only reason that it doesn't look godly, is because this is the extent to which godliness had to go ahead and be constricted in order for you to be able to live and not be completely obliterated. So the world is not concealing Hashem. It is allowing for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be concealed within it, and therefore communicated to us in a way that we can handle it. That's the truth of what this world is. This world is not concealing Hashem. This world is the greatest revelation of Hashem. This world is the point to which godliness had to be constricted in order for us to be able to live as independent beings and perceive godliness. But because of that, it's very hidden. And we have to look for it and look for it and look for it. And so this is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu did. He underwent this incredible process, constriction after constriction, concealment after concealment. And thereby HaKadosh Baruch Hu is called Adain. Adain means a master, a king. This name Admi, Aleph Dalid Nun Yud, is actually connected with the Sphira of Malchus, right? That place where HaKadosh Baruch Hu's kingship is revealed is connected to the concept of Aleph Dalid Nun Yud, this name Adon, that we actually could pronounce with our mouths. Why? Because in order for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to have his kingship be revealed, he needed to constrict himself to such a point where human beings would be able to conceive of him. Memela, that word we could say, because that's the place where HaKadosh Baruch Hu's kingship is revealed. Because we have a conception of it, a perception of it, without it just completely annihilating us. And therefore, we're permitted to pronounce this name, which hints to us that this is the name that we have a connection to. Why do we have a connection to it? Because this is the extent to which HaKadosh Baruch Hu went to reveal his godliness, to the point where we could accept him as king over us. That's why the name Aleph Dal Nun Yud is pronounceable. We're able to say it, because that tells us that we have a connection with it. And thereby, it's connected to Malchus, because it is the realm where finally HaKadosh Baruch Hu's kingship could be revealed. Okay, that's our connection to the name Aleph Dalet Nun Yud, which he calls Adain over here. It's only because HaKadosh Baruch Hu constricted himself, so that we can perceive ourselves as being, as making choices, and then from that place choose to see the world as a revelation of godliness. That's our current circumstance. That's called being a human being. That's called being a Yid. Kemashol, and he gives a famous mashal that's brought from the Maggid, but all of his Talmidim bring it as well. Ha'av, like a father, should seem same as daitoi b'shvil b'nai. That he sort of takes his understanding and what he really wants to say and express, and mamish constricts it in order so that his 10-year-old could be able to understand something, even though in his mind it's infinitely deeper. But he finds a way to couch it in terminology that's going to be relevant to a young kid. And more than that, sometimes the father will act silly, even though it's below his dignity. He doesn't do this in the office, but when he's home and his two kids are sitting on the floor, even though he's a very dignified, sophisticated person, he can make a silly face or do a little bit of a silly dance for his kids to make them laugh. Because that's how they need to perceive him. That's how they need to feel that he loves them, that he's connected to them, that he's willing to go to such a length to even act in a way that's less than dignified in order to let them know that he has shaykhis with them. She'ein haben masig esichlei hagadol, because excuse me, because the son is not able to really understand the great wisdom and intellect of the father. And it's the same thing with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu constricts himself in order to give us this ability to exist and to choose a life of dveikus with him, and in so doing, from that perspective, to be able to experience a life of glory, of greatness, of beauty, of productivity, of accomplishment. The opposite of nama de kisufa, just getting something without having earned it. We can live in a place where we exist. And that's an amazing, amazing thing. An amazing thing, an amazing gift that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us. L'chein, therefore, ein an rishayim, rak b'shem atni. Therefore, we are only allowed, and we hinted to this before, to use this name, Aleph Dalet Nun Yud, and to say it. But we cannot say Yud Ke Vav Ke, which we'll get to in a minute. L'chein ein anu masigim rak ha-seichel, or madrega ketana. We're only able to perceive a very limited nature of being, where Hashem is hidden, Hashemayim Shemayim Lashem, and then he hid himself, and then Va'aretz Nasan L'Bnei Adam. This is our world, and we have Lamates Malachas, like we spoke about. Koich Va'otzim Yadi. We're the ones doing things, even in a positive sense, not in an arrogant sense. This is our perception. But it's only a hasaga in Aleph Dalet Nun Yud, which is the level of tzimtzum so constricted so that Hashem could reveal his kingship over us, which is us living in a world that seems to completely conceal HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the purpose of allowing him to be revealed in a way that we could relate to him. Right? That's the paradox here. The concealment is the revelation, but the revelation is also the concealment, and that's the challenge. And l'chein ein anu masigim rak we're only able to grasp very, very constricted level of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's revelation. And this is because he wanted to reveal his kingship, and so he went through this whole process, but it's a very limited experience. Which is Shema Etzem Yisbarach, which is the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a realm beyond, and in a realm, I would also say within, because there's no such thing as a realm beyond. It's a realm within. All of spirituality, with all of its levels, it's folded into each other. It's layers of an onion. And so beyond the layer of this physical world, which we experience from the core of it, that's the most constricted, well, if we look beyond it, there is a level of our reality, underlying our lived experience, where in truth, in truth, there's no such thing as Bechira, in that place, before HaKadosh Baruch Hu limited himself to give us the perception of Bechira. Yud Kei Vav Kei Haya, Hoive, Yiyah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in the future, HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows what's going to be, Magi Mirashis Achris, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Soifu Mabit, Misoif Kaladoiris, Vat Soifu, Haya Hoive V'Yiyah. There's no time. There's no causal relationship between things. All there is Yud Kei Vav Kei. All there is Hoive, which means there is, with a Yud in the beginning. Yud hints to perpetuity, something that lasts for a very long time. Yivchar, it's the place, referring to the Beis HaMikdash, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu will always choose. So it's the paradox of Hoive, which is present, and then a Yud, which tells us it's the eternally present. The eternally present. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is just in everything, in every moment. Yud Kei Vav Kei. We can't say it with our mouth. We cannot perceive it. But it's there. But we can't say it. Aval Havaya Baruch Hu, Shema Etzem Yisbarach Ein Anu Masigim. Because that hints to a level beyond the realm that HaKadosh Baruch Hu constricted himself into for the purpose of allowing us a hasaga. That's only Adain, that's Adni, that's the sphere of Malchus. Yud Kei Vav Kei, that's called Kutcha B'richu. That's transcendent. That's the higher realms, or the realms within. That's a deeper perception. We can't live on that level. We can't function on that level. That would be the obliteration of our perception of reality. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu locked that in such a way that if we tried, like we said before, it wouldn't work. Even if we tried to live on the level, okay, Hashem is doing everything. That's not our experience. We experience Bechira. And that's why, like the Rambam says, Schar and Einish. It's a real thing. Because even though, like we said, on the deepest level, Yediyah, Kadosh Baruch Hu knows everything, we experience Bechira. Hashem did a pretty darn good job. Even if you could learn this stuff 24 hours a day, it doesn't play out in our lived experience this way. Because we live in the level of Malchus. We live under the level of the Shem Aleph Dalet Nun Yud, but there is a Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei. We have no connection to it. We can't say it with our mouth. We don't even know how to pronounce it. V'chein therefore kala olamais eina michodam lahasig rak be'espashtos hagashmius ve'atakboires koyach haruchni. And therefore, the only way that the worlds, meaning us within the physical world, can perceive that level is by removing ourselves from Gashmias as much as possible. Meaning using our Bechira correctly. From this moment on, that clarifies things. That allows us to tap into a realm that's even beyond, while we're still in this world. Kemai, Kayin Gadol b'Yom HaKippur. Like the Kayin Gadol on Yom Kippur. Sha'az hu Shabbos Shabbosayin. Yom Kippur, that we're getting to, Be'ez Hashem, preparing for, marching toward, is the Shabbos of Shabbos. Shabbos Shabbosayin. Whatever Shabbos is, Yom Kippur is to the nth degree. Ki Kedusha Shabbos mashbiya b'chol ha'olamos v'sheishes yemei ha'maisa. Shabbos, which we've been learning about and we saw from the Mei HaShiloach, is the element of realizing that really, even in Aleph Dalet Nun Yud, even here, Mashem ha'aretz u'maloya kol asher chafetz Hashem asa b'shamayim uva aretz. That's the hasag of Shabbos. That's the hasag of Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur gives us a break. It allows us to remove ourselves. Just like Shabbos, we remove ourselves from the Lametas Malachas. Yom Kippur, it's even more than that. We don't even eat or drink. It's totally ruchni. Totally ruchni. And we enter into a reality which allows us to glimpse for a moment the truth of La Hashem Ha'aretz U'Malaya. of Shemitah that carries into the 8th year like we learned. That's the level of Yom Kippur Shabbos Shabbosayin. We're able to look beyond the facade of our choice. And when the Kohen Gadol says the Shem HaMefurish, the Kodesh HaKadoshim, that's what brings about this deepest level of forgiveness, where the string that's red itself turns white. There's a revelation of the truth that everything is part and parcel of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's unfolding master plan. Everything. This is Yom Kippur. This is Tshuva. In its highest and most exalted perception. And we need to work toward this. We need to first take responsibility. And then we climb the level as Yom Kippur gets longer and forward, and we go through the tefillah to tefillah to tefillah. At the pinnacle of the zenith, ultimately, there's no vidui ne'ilah. Hashem u'elekim mamish. At the very, very end, it's the deepest revelation of this understanding, this reality. After 24 hours, not eating, not drinking, it's just the Yud Gimel Midas of Rachamim. It's just the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Master of heaven and earth. We want to serve you properly. We've been trying. We're struggling. We're stumbling. We're trying. We're getting back up. We're moving. We're working on ourselves. It's hard. It's very, very difficult. It's very difficult. But Yom Kippur, we tap into that realm of perfect clarity that the truth is, and the ultimate scheme of things, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's all folded into your Ratzon. Hashem hu ha'alekim. That even that which we perceive as Elokim, which is also a reference to Malchus, the pasuk says Elikim Malki Mikedem, which is connected to Aleph Dalet Nun Yud, is Hashem hu Elikim. It's all Hashem. It's all Yud Kevavke. That's the tikkun. It's the ultimate tikkun. This is the ultimate limud schus on ourselves. And then in that moment, realizing Mamish Einoid Malvadoi, so then you move into Sukkos, which gives us back our hands, and we're building a sukkah. And when it's in the physical world, and we go out into the world of Mamish, and we build something, and look what we build. But it's meaning to say we reclaim our experience of Bechira, which is very real. But now we're ready to use it only L'tov. Now we're committed. Because we plugged back into the realization that really Ein Oid Malvadi, really HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running things. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants a relationship with us. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in every moment that led up to this moment of realization, it was all part of a lichatchila process to allow me in this moment to stand up and to change. And in so doing, to carry my whole past with me into a brighter future. So he says, Yom HaKippurim kedushas elamala she'em bayachilu shesiyah v'az yachal hasig miksas haseichel shalamala mea oilamais. We're able to tap into a little taste, me'ein olam haba, little taste of what that is beyond. In the levels that haven't reached the constriction necessary to allow us to live life as a physical human being with our perception of independence. We can peer beyond the curtain, and we can taste a little bit of this. Lefikach, therefore, on Yom Kippur, hizker as Hashem hamefurish shu shema etzem yizbarach. The Kohen Gadol is actually able then to pronounce the name. There's a window opened from the realm of the eternal into this temporal experience of the physical realm. And it's a moment of perfect, almost ineffable. It's impossible to put into words what we experience. And all of us have experienced it, and I bless us with it. I can't wait for it. It takes work. You have to earn it. But those moments, those last moments of Yom Kippur, it's aklois hanefesh. It's mamish. You're ready to let go. Mesim nafshe bechapai, like Chazal say. You should daven like you're ready to go. You're mamish. You're not in this world anymore. I bless you to find a minyan where you can mamish let loose, mamish roaring. Hashem Elikim. There's no room. There's no people. There's nothing. Ein oid milvadoi. Gepshutai mamish. That's where we get to. V'zeu nagid shmei. So he says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to be a negid. Sheratz aliyas negid va'adain. in order to enable this reality of a world where HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Malchus could be accepted by conscious individuals who are separate from Him or appear to be separate from Him, in order for that reality to come to pass, Avad Shmei. HaKadosh Baruch Hu hides the Shem Havaya, the Shem Ha'etzim. Shehutzrich Litzamtzim Shem Ha'etzim Yisbarach. He hides away that perception of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. Al Derech Ki Yod Al Keis Ka. It hides. It hides. HaKadosh Baruch Hu hid that reality. But that means to say, if this is Yom Kippur, then of course it's once a year, and experientially it's very different from Shabbos. Shabbos itself, even though we're not doing malach and we're not working and we're not on our phones, and so on, still we're eating and drinking. We're in the physical world. So Yom Kippur is like the pinnacle of this kind of thing, this kind of perception, this kind of awareness, this kind of experience. But every week Shabbos, we taste this as well. This is the Hasaga of Shabbos. And I want to say something deep. Just again, for our, not like, to meditate on it, or just to have it as a visual image, I think could be very useful. As we go into Shabbos, Be'ezer Hashem, it's already Erev Shabbos tomorrow, and then walking into the palace in time, the way that I like to think of it is steps up to this palace. That's like we described at length. It's mamish walking into a different mitzias completely. And you walk into the palace and then look out the window at the steps, and you realize that all of a sudden the palace has expanded to such a degree that the steps are in the palace. You didn't walk up steps externally to get into the palace. Everything's the palace. There's nothing but palace. The steps fade away into this experience of an incredible, incredible cloud of spiritual, of spiritual light, and of spiritual energy, and of spiritual potency. That's how Shabbos should be perceived. That's the teaching of Shabbos. That's what Shabbos demands, that not only that we carry into the following week, but that we look back on the week that passed and we realize, La Hashem ha'aretz u'maloya. We lay down our tools, we open our hearts, and we realize, mamish, sure, the bus is driving, and we may even have our hands on a steering wheel, but that steering wheel is not ultimately connected. And of course, we don't experience this because just like it's very real for the little kid, he thinks he's driving the bus, even though he's mamash not driving the bus. I hope I'm getting this visual over properly. They have double-decker buses, so in some of the buses they have installed on the second thing for kids to sit, because you're sitting mamash where the driver is sitting. He's underneath, and so the kids are sitting, and it looks like they're driving the bus. But the driver is driving the bus, right? So when we translate that into our nimshal here, just like the kid is convinced, we're mamish convinced. And we have proofs, and we could show, listen, we turned the wheel this way, and the bus went that way. I mean, it's unbelievable. But it's not true. It's mamish not true. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running things. HaKadosh Baruch Hu ran things. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running things and will continue to run things. Shabbos is a taste of this. And especially the Shabbos before Yom Kippur carries the energy of Yom Kippur. As we march into Yom Kippur, this is the Sod of Tshuva. I bless us to stand on that mountaintop and to look back over our year. And in a moment of great clarity and great openness and really great emotion and an authentic feeling, not because we're trying to school a system, but because mamish we mean it. We say, Rabbana Shalom, in this moment of a revelation of Einoid Milvadoi, I realize that everything is you. And if everything is you, and even my Bechira is yours, then from this moment on I'm resolving to use my illusory Bechira to mamish create for you a dira b'tachtoinim in my life. That's Sukkot and beyond, all the way to Chanukah. And in the regular just drudgery of the weeks and months that we're walking into, really we're committing ourselves with a Ratzon Tov to start the year off strong, to build an intimate relationship with Hashem, to really live life on this level even during the week, to make the week Shabbostic, just like Shemitah we carry into the 8th year and we carry Shabbos into Sunday morning, to live a Shabbostic life and to gift this consciousness to others, not even by saying it or preaching it, but by mamish living it. It will overflow, and in so doing, we bring the world closer to the ultimate Olam Haba that Shabbos is only a taste of, But each of our experience of Shabbos, step by step, we make the world a Shabbos-tic place. That's our goal. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should bless us with it. I bless you with it. And Mamish, I hope that this will give us more of an energy as we walk into Shabbos. Eze zchut. What a privilege to have a day like this. Unbelievable. Let's Mamish feel it. Let's connect with it. Let's bring it into the week. I wish each and every one of you a Gemar Chasima Toiva, a Gitke Ben Shiar. It should be a year full of every kind of bracha, hatzlacha. It should be a year of chayrus. Mamish chayrus of every kind. Total freedom. Total freedom from whatever you need to be freed from. Freedom. Be'ezer Hashem. And we'll continue. I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay, next week's going to be hard. Stay tuned. We'll see whether we're going to continue next week or after Sukkot. But Be'ezer Hashem, it's a good aschala. Thank you for joining, and wishing you a beautiful Shabbos up ahead. B'siyata d'shmaya. Thank you guys so much. Ashrecha, Ashreinu, Chazak v'yamatz. Be in touch. All the best. Thank you, Chaver.